Chapter 14. That night the princess woke from her restless sleep with a start. She sat up in her bed in a cold sweat. She had been dreaming of her parents, having seen gaunt and haunting versions of her parents, of their faces, surrounded in blackness. Her chest heaved as she brought in a hand to her mouth to stifle a scream. Then she noticed someone in her room, laying on a couch. It was Prince Michael. She silently slipped off the bed and walked to the wardrobe, opening it with a slight creak. She took a thick blanket from the bottom shelf and closed the door, whose hinges were in need of oil. She then went to the couch and spread the blanket over the prince, who she noticed had kicked off his boots and was now cuddling it into a pillow. She couldn't help but smile with the sight of the pompous prince, who had shown a far different side that day. With a soft yawn, she went back to her bed, pulled the covers up to her shoulders before settling into an uneasy sleep. Hours later, the princess woke up to Prince Michael's voice. "Paoli, it's okay. It's just a dream. Please wake up." He sounded worried. She opened her icy blue eyes to see a blurred version of his face. She had been crying in her sleep. She blinked and wiped away the tears and tried to calm herself. "Oh." She tried to steady her breathing. But it was so real. What was so real? He can tell me. He sat next to her on the bed. He was showing a far different side of him than a few weeks or even a few days ago. She supposed he was legitimately worried about her. "I kept seeing my father and mother, well, versions of them, their faces surrounded in darkness, staring at me, as if I could have done something to stop them from..." She broke down into more tears, holding her head in her hands. He held her, wrapping his arms around her. She raised a hand to run his fingers through her hair. "Shh, it's all right. It's just a dream. There was nothing you or anyone could have done, Paoli. It was just fate." She let her head lay on his chest as he spoke, finding a bit of comfort in his words. Perhaps he actually was growing to love her, and her him. But it had taken the death of her father, a man so dear to her, to bring them together. As she calmed down a bit, Prince Michael noticed something about her. He didn't know if it was roses or some other flower, but maybe even her natural scent, but she smelled sweet. But this was hardly the time to notice such things, when his princess was clearly upset. "Do you need anything? Water or midnight stroll around the palace?" He looked down at her face. "Ale? Sleeping potion?" His thoughts were getting away from him. Those were the things he had used the night he found out they were gone. "No, thank you. Just let me stay like this for a moment." She couldn't lie and say he brought her no comfort. He had gone through this before, as horrible as she felt at that moment. She was sure he had felt the same, if not worse, as if he had not been there when his parents had passed. He still held her in his arms. "Whatever you wish, Paoli, I'm here." They spent the next few hours before sunrise together under the blankets, with her head remaining on his chest, his heartbeat oddly comforting to her. The next few days passed slowly and were made even more dreary by the rain clouds that had settled in, suiting weather for a castle in mourning. Or so Princess Paoli thought as she sighed, looking to her now cold lunch. Her appetite had suffered with the death of King Victor. "Paoli, please eat. It's been 2 days since you've had a bite." Prince Michael insisted from the chair beside her. They sat in the dining room of the castle. I'm sorry, I can't. My body won't allow me to swallow anything. She sighed, pushing the plate aside. But perhaps I'll have someone bring you some broth. You need something in your stomach. She shook her head. All right, I'll try. He rose from his seat. Stay there. I'll be right back. He left the room, going in the kitchen, quickly finding the chef. Excuse me, could you have a bowl of broth brought out to the princess? She isn't feeling well enough to eat real food. Yes, Your Highness. The heavily built balding man nodded before turning back to his stove and preparing a bowl of the stock from the chicken he had been boiling for the princess's lunch. Chicken broth was supposed to be good for someone who was ill, but the princess wasn't exactly ill. She was mourning, as was almost everyone in the palace. King Victor was very much loved throughout the land, especially in his own castle. I'll have it out to her right away. Thank you. He returned to the dining hall to find the princess gone. Where could she have been? He had been away only for a moment. Paoli. No answer. Princess Paoli! He shouted, rushing into the hallway. He found her walking down the corridor. He caught up to her. Paoli, speak to me, or at least look at me. Why did you leave? Because I can't stand the sight of food, so I might as well just go back to my own room. Her eyes were cast down on the cobblestones. I think I have a better idea. It was pouring rain outside, and they were pretty much stuck inside the castle, but anything had to be better than letting her sulk in her room all day. Come with me, please. He took her hand and led her down the hall to a door. This leads to the tower, correct? She nodded slowly. Yes, but why do you ask? No reason. He opened the door, revealing a stone staircase that spiraled up for what seemed to be miles, but was only a few stories. He led her up the stairs, a small smile spreading across his face. Why are you taking me up to the tower? No one's been up there for months. All the more reason we should go up there. He still held her hand as the heels of her shoes clicked against the gray stone of the steps. Again, why? She asked, trying her best to keep up with him. You'll see, just follow me. They soon reached the top of the stairs and another door which Prince Michael swung open. The room beyond the door was indeed rusty and had been used to store old, worn-out weapons and rusted suits of armor awaiting the smelter. He took her to the one window that wasn't blocked off by useless equipment and debris and moved her so she could see what the thick clouds would allow her to see. Why are we here? The clouds are too thick for me to see anything with my own hand. She stood in a smile, even tried to look at him. She was so different from the princess that he had met at his own palace, and he found that he would give anything to have her back. He stood beside her. Just try to see past the fog in the distance, if only for a moment. She squinted, becoming annoyed with this. What am I supposed to be seeing? You're supposed to see the kingdom your father left you. The king who not only claimed this land and protected it with his life, but also sired and raised two beautiful daughters, one of whom I've fallen in love with. She finally lifted her head to look at him. Please do not remind me of the burden my father's left me to deal with. Tears were starting to prick her bloodshot eyes. Paoli, I'm willing to help you with this so-called burden if you'd only allow me to do so. He agreed. Being left with the weight of the entire kingdom on your shoulders was enough to break a man. It was enough to break him, at least. So he would do his best to aid her in her time of need. I'll be your advisor, your aide, if you'd let me. Your king. He looked into her eyes, lifting a hand to wipe away the tear that had escaped the corner of her eye. This kingdom was left in your capable hands, but I know you, Paoli. You really can't handle this on your own. No one person can. So what do you say? Will you, Princess Paoli, finally make me the happiest man in the two kingdoms and be my queen? I don't see as if I have a choice. She frowned, sitting against the windowsill. It is either that or the kingdom my father worked his whole life to protect falls to ruin. That's a terrible way of putting things, he scowled. There's always the option of ruling alone, or with me as your advisor, or whatever title you decide to give me. But I would need to return to my own palace eventually, if only to tell my entire staff they'll be moving to this castle, and frankly, I don't think the servants' quarters are really big enough. Or that they'll be moving into the palace that we would have built for us if you so desire, or I could tell a lot of them that they're now jobless, as I'm now moving myself and all my belongings here. She was silent for as he spoke. Are you quite finished with this drivel? Drivel? He frowned, taken by surprise her flat tone and glaring eyes. Yes, drivel. No one said anything about you moving anywhere, especially here. And given the cost of the funeral and the burial in the mausoleum of the royal family, I cannot afford to build a new castle on a whim. Not to mention, I don't really think you'd lower yourself in rank for anyone or anything. That title is your birthright. Never sign it away like that. I know that. I just wanted some sort of reaction from you other than a few sparks of words and a sigh every now and then. He leaned against the wall. But I do love you, Paoli, and I wish you would accept my offer. Well, you've gotten it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to go back to my room. She walked to the door. You know, for the love of God, don't say it. Crying and sulking in your room won't bring him back. She was silent, still facing the door. I know. Nothing will. She left the room, leaving only the sound of her retreating footsteps as she made her way back to the main floor. Damn it, Michael! He scowled at himself when he knew she was gone. He didn't have to tell her what was obvious. He groaned. Oh well, too late now. He left his place at the wall and walked out of the room, slammed the door behind him.